Good morning, or good afternoon actually, just catching up in our time zones. Thank you for having me, and it's great to see another WordCamp in Australia. Having just come back from Europe, WordCamp Europe, WordCamps just continue to grow every location that we attend, and it's an opportunity for everyone to be involved, get involved in the space, and become contributors in the space as well, which is exciting to see. Today's conversation, we're talking about performance, and we're talking about performance in a slightly different way to a normal conversation about how we look at performance in the WordPress space. What we know is that the longer it takes a page to load, the more quickly people leave your site. Walmart did an interesting study that basically said that the moment you hit more than 4 seconds, you've basically lost your customer. In fact, the moment you've hit more than 2 seconds, customers are already contemplating going somewhere else. We have a trick to solve that problem for people that are arriving at your site. It's called page caching. Just about every host offers some form of page caching. Cloudflare APO is another option in that area. There are a number of CDN type tools like Flying Press and Rocket.net that all do page caching in some way, shape or form. They rely on the fact that none of that page needs to be generated dynamically. None of that page needs to be updated with the latest information. So for a small blogging site or a small shopping type site, WooCommerce and others, we can page cache the first landing experience. The problem is though, we can't page cache the checkout experience. We can't page cache the cart. If people are selecting multiple items and that cart is being loaded on the side of the page, we can't do the things that we would do the moment a user has to interact. The second part of that is in the WordPress space, we also allow users to log in. So these are people coming into environments like a membership site, an e-learning site, a jobs board, or other components where people need to be able to put in an email address or put in a username and a password. And the moment they do, they enter into what we call the dynamic WordPress space. Page caching no longer works in any way, shape or form. So it relies on the underlying server and your WordPress product and your WordPress platform to be able to generate those pages. But the reality is that the same thing is still happening. If your pages are loading slowly, it doesn't feel like the experience that they're used to on Facebook. It doesn't feel like the experience they're used to on Instagram or Shopify or any of those other places where we go on the internet. All of a sudden, the sites start to feel a little bit clunky. That leads to a couple of things. Poor SEO experiences, and probably more importantly for dynamic sites, poor user experiences. This gets worse and compounds as more users start to join your site, what we call concurrency. And a lot of what we're talking about today is things like concurrency. It refers to situations where a website has more than one user on it at one time. Now in the WordPress space, for small sites, concurrency is not usually a problem. You might have 1 or 2 people on a site at the same time. Statistically, you may only ever have one. It's a shopping cart experience. You might only have one person browsing through a checkout, and they're the only one there. In a MemberPress site, or a membership site, or an e-learning site, firstly, you can have multiple users interacting at the same time. And secondly, again, unlike say a shopping cart experience where what we really want to do is get them in, down the sales funnel and hit the buy button, and we want to get them out in 2 or 3 minutes because we know that if they're there for longer than that, their buying decision starts to reduce. In a MemberPress site or a membership site, say a platform like BuddyBoss, We want them there for days or hours. A LearnDash course, they might be there for 12 hours doing a course through that LearnDash system. So again, we want it with scenarios where A, there are people on the platform for an extended period of time, and B, there are multiple people on the platform for an extended period of time. This is where all of those page caching tools start to fail. So what we're going to be looking at today is how we can look at ways to optimize our WordPress sites to improve those performance metrics. Now, this is a bit of a technical discussion, so there is going to be some command lines and other things going on. So if you have any questions, make a note of them. We'll do a Q&A at the end where we can talk that through. I'm here after the event today, happy to talk to people about this. I'm also available, and we'll put up some details later, and make WordPress in the hosting team so that we can chat about this more. The underlying reality is that a WordPress site in the normal world can load in a certain given period of time. Slow sites can take a couple of minutes. Slow sites can take up to 15 seconds to load a page in a dynamic site. Now, obviously, that really becomes untenable. People get frustrated and they don't like the user experience. This is a typical active community site in a platform called BuddyBoss. I have a number of years' experience with BuddyBoss. I was a customer of BuddyBoss. I was also an employee of the BuddyBoss team. Effectively, BuddyBoss allows a customer to turn their WordPress site into something not unsimilar to Facebook. It has activity feeds, it has groups, which are similar to Facebook, sessions. It has all the standard things like blogs, all those things. And you can see that as we're clicking through this, it's reasonably responsive, but there's still some lags. We'll notice as we change between the blog and the activity feed that everything takes a little bit longer to load. Now, the important thing to understand is this is actually an optimized site. There has already been a team that have worked on optimizing this site to improve its performance. But the reality is that underlying WordPress are a set of techniques that means that things can take time. So what we're going to be doing today is looking at a sample site that one of my long-term customers graciously let me break specifically for this event. Again, this is a BuddyBoss site. It's also a LearnDash site. It's also a WooCommerce site. It's also a jobs board site. Literally got every plugin you could possibly imagine in the WordPress space installed. They're going to let me hop into the dashboard, and we can see that I've selected WP Admin, and we're waiting. It got there eventually. I can go to something like, let's have a look at their plugin list. Select it, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And customers actually start to believe that this is WordPress. They actually start to go, oh, well, WordPress is just slow. WordPress isn't as performant as it could be. And this experience is what people start to believe. I've had customers come to me and say, oh, look, we love WordPress, but that WP admin's horrible. I can see a face pulling a face. What's the face for? This is, I kid you not, this is a standard sort of plugin setup for a complex dynamic WordPress site. You can have a look. It's got, even if we go to the active ones, we'll get rid of the inactive ones because I turned a heap off just so that this wouldn't get too ridiculously painful. But I'll just run through you very quickly. We have a cron manager. We have advanced custom fields. We have BuddyBoss Platform. We have BuddyBoss App. We have BuddyBoss Platform Pro. We have BuddyPress. We have Matomo, which is an activation. We have a contact form tool. We have dynamic conditions processing. We have an editor. We have Elastic Press, which is a search engine. We have Elementor. We have Elementor Pro. We have Envato. We have Fluent. We have Fluent Forms. We have Fluent SMTP. We have GamiPress. We have Kind Harvest their own editions. We have LearnDash. We have LearnDash certificate build. And on we go. This is common. About 70 active plugins here. The worst I've ever seen had 204. And part of the problem is that WordPress allows that. These are things that are permissible. And for a customer coming into the WordPress space, what they do is they go, oh, I need a specific feature. And they go to the WordPress directory and they find a plugin that does it and they install it. And the next thing we know, they're doing that, and doing that, and doing that. Again, MemberPress, Object Cache Pro, you name it. They've installed everything, but it allows that particular set of features to all run very seamlessly on a WordPress site. Activity feeds, forums, groups, courses, articles, all in the same space. Now, put it in perspective as well. This site is actually running on the highest performance web server currently available in our rapid cloud service space. So this is already running a super fast server, but we're still taking 2.6 to 3 seconds to generate a single page. We go to the courses page. Yeah, we're waiting, 2.8 seconds. We go to the groups page. The same sort of things are happening. Now, the problem here is that the language then starts to become WordPress isn't up to it. So what is actually happening with sites like this is they're starting to seriously look at whether WordPress is right for them. They're starting to look at SaaS platforms. They're starting to look at Teachific, Circle.io, Mighty Networks, obviously Shopify, because the feeling is that the performance levels just aren't cutting it. The reality is, though, that there are things that we can do ourselves on our own platforms and also in conversations with our hosts to improve this performance. Now, the first thing we're going to be talking about, and I will just switch back here for the moment, is a tool called OP caching. Now, OP caching is a technique that is going to accelerate our page here. And remember, we're not going to be changing the server. We're just going to be changing settings from now on inside our WordPress page. OP cache is a native part of PHP. It was developed by the team that created PHP in a company called Zend. What OP cache does is a way to pre-compile all that PHP code. On that particular site, I know there's about 14,000 PHP files from all those goddamn plugins. And every single time a page loads, every single one of those PHP files has to be read off the disk, compiled or pre-compiled, and then executed. What OP caching allows us to do is to actually pre-compile all that, store it in memory, and then never go back to the disk again. And that's the first thing we're going to look at today. We're using one of our platform dashboards to help us a little bit in this space. OP cache is available on many servers. I will say, though, not necessarily available on smaller shared hosts because of some technical challenges. But if you're in a space where you're looking at dynamic websites, I would respectfully suggest that a shared host is probably not your best solution. You need to be looking at a managed hosting provider that is more appropriate. So we're going to make a couple of very small changes. You'll see by default that OP cache is not enabled. You'll see that, so what I'm going to do is very quickly enable it and just tell our server that we've turned it on. And we're going to switch back to here for a minute. Oh, we don't want that. We don't need to know about anything else in the space today. We're going to refresh our page, and instantly we've picked up close to half a second of performance by just enabling OP cache. But remember I said that OP cache caches files. Now, the default for most WordPress sites is what I've just set. And the default for those WordPress sites is about 64 megabytes of memory allocated to OP cache. But as I said, this is a big, ugly, dynamic site with lots and lots of plugins. So we're enabling a plugin tool here. It's called WP OP Cache. You can download it and install it. And it's going to show us that we've got 64 megabytes of RAM allocated. And we've been able to cache 1,556 files in that RAM space. But we can see also that it's saying we're missing 100,000 of those. So that's every time a page request is, we've cached a little bit of it. So this is the default setting for people that use a WordPress site. What we want to do in this case is make a change to that. What we're going to do is add some extra memory. Now, what I've done here, just for quickness, is, so I don't have to type these in, we're going to, I hate that, comment out some of these. And we're going to slightly enable something a little bit more powerful. What we've now done is said, instead of the defaults for PHP, which is 64 meg, and something called intern strings, which is a memory buffer of 9 meg and about 8,000 files, we're going to open it up. We're going to say, from now on, you've got 300 meg of memory to use. You've got 40 meg of intern strings, and you've got 20,000 files allocated. We're going to save this, and we're going to do the same thing. This little command here just tells my web server that I've changed LSPS, or the PHP server, and from now on, respect that. If we now go here and refresh this particular plugin, which is again going to tell us how we're doing, we now see that we've cached, in this case, 5,600 files. And we've got 5,600 misses. What that's effectively now saying is we're caching every page. Let's go back and have a quick look. And all of a sudden, 1.3 seconds. 2.6 seconds to 1.3 seconds by changing effectively one set of settings in our WordPress. OP Cache is the most valuable tool that you can possibly install and configure properly in your WordPress space. The rest of the things we're now going to be talking about, fiddle that around the edges, but that's the first place to start. The next tool that we're going to talk about relates to that. And the slideshow, we'll just go back and talk about this very briefly. OP Cache has actually been around since PHP version 7.2, if I remember rightly. Became really popular around 7.3 and 7.4. But in 8.0 of PHP, a new feature was installed. This new feature is called the just-in-time compiler. The just-in-time compiler takes what we're doing with OP Cache even further. OP Cache precompiles all those PHP files and stores them in what's called opcode, which is a partially compiled set of files that still have to be run through an interpreter. It runs very quickly. In WordPress 8.0, they release what's called the just-in-time compiler. It takes that opcode and converts it to machine language, which gives us another performance boost. Now, in the WordPress space, there is a number of debates around whether or not there is a lot of benefit from just-in-time compiler caching. Where you see it most is under high concurrent load, where it allows the CPUs to run just that bit faster, but for every just that bit faster, you add additional users that can execute in the same minute. Again, only available on 8.0 and above, and especially available on platforms like 8.4. Again, here's one we prepared earlier. Now, because we're not running concurrently, we haven't got 1,000 users all trying to hit the site. Statistically, we're not going to see as big a jump. But you'll see that, again, it's just a set of settings in PHP INI file. In this case, we've told it to turn the just-in-time compiler on. We've given it some more memory. Now, this is a thing to be aware of, and this is why I say it doesn't work well with shared hosts. We're running a server here which has, sort of structurally, I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM allocated to it. It's got 8 CPU cores. As I said, this is a highly optimized site. So we do have the resources available. So we'll turn on the just-in-time compiler. We've given it 512 meg of memory, and we've set it to what's called tracing optimization. Tracing optimization is a mechanism that intelligently analyzes all those 5,500 PHP files and works out which ones it needs to compile. And over time, it's analysing what the website is doing and compiling more and more of those into the same space. So again, we've set it on. Again, we're going to tell the server to utilise it. This time we're going to go back here and we're going to very quickly go refresh. Now again, we're not going to get quite the same big stellar jumps. This will take 2 runs forward. The first one wakes everything up. And again, statistically, it's roughly around the same sort of timelines. Because we're not looking at concurrent load, we're looking at things that are, we're the only person on the site. So we don't get a huge benefit from it, but it is something to consider as you get into concurrency. They're the 2 biggest things that you can look at. Then we start looking at things that can go beyond that. The first one is a tool called object caching. By default, every time your website renders a page, it has to go and connect to the database and do database queries. Now, in a site like a BuddyBoss site or a LearnDash site, some of those queries can be incredibly repetitive. For example, an activity feed where it wants to show for every like and every comment the name of the person that actually liked it or their avatar. It actually has to go out to the database and do that request. BuddyBoss sites, LearnDash sites can generate up to 2,000 SQL database requests per page load. Now, that exercise, going back to the database, can happen multiple times. It can go back and ask for that user multiple times. Object caching is a technique that allows us to take that data and store it in memory for commonly used requests. So all of those user requests, all those things that are enabled in the space, everything gets buried. There it is. So what we're going to do, the joys of object caching. We're going to enable object caching on this server. And this is a feature that's available again on many websites, many web hosts. It's normally called Redis, and it's a feature that a lot of hosts will make available to you. Once you've installed that, once you've installed object caching, it adds a background process, which is going to power up. And we go to there, and we just wait for it to all wake up. Never try to do this stuff in a live demo because it inevitably always takes that little bit of time. We would normally be managing this on a server platform. There we go, it's awake now. And what you'll now see is if we go into this plugin, is that it started caching database requests. If we go back to our dashboard, and again we look at this activity feed, we'll find that again over time, these numbers start to drop down. Now again, because object caching is something that is largely beneficial of concurrent users, what we're doing here in all of these spaces is adding tools that ensure that as the load comes up, that number doesn't go up. It stays at that for 1 user, 10 users, 1,000 users, because what we're doing is adding tools that increase and improve concurrency. There are multiple different versions of Object Cache Pro, Redis, and other tools like Relay, which can all together maintain and ensure that we're getting websites to load not in 2 minutes, not in 3 minutes, but in 1 to 1.5 seconds of fully dynamically rendered, fully dynamically completed pages. Now, again, putting in perspective, you can see there's lots going on here. Different people, different loads, AJAX calls happening and refreshing that page. We're doing that all now in real time. No page caching, no page tricks, achieving that sort of outcome in real time. After object caching, we then start to look at where we go next. And the next trick is one that very few people know about WordPress. WordPress as a platform does not optimize the database that you're utilizing. And in fact, as you add complex custom WordPress sites, there is a massive problem with scalability, especially of user lists, and all those things that we love to add called custom post types. From a technical perspective, there are two tables in WordPress that do all the magic. They're called meta tables. And those meta tables, one for user and one for post, store everything. Any new custom post type or any new bit of user data that you want to add gets stuffed into this one big vertical table. And that vertical table has a column called the value column. Really useful tool. We can put anything in there, be it a whole page or, the way unfortunately a lot of people use it, user selectable data. We might want to know the hair color of all of our users. And so we create a custom post type called the user idea and we pull it into that column. The problem is that that column is not indexed. Now, if you've only got 10 users, not so much of a problem. If you've got 100,000 users, the database has to do what's called a table walk. Load that entire table into memory and then walk down the entire table to see which ones match the word blonde. And it has to do it every single time. It's a native flaw in WordPress. WordPress Core and WordPress Performance know about it, but at this stage are reluctant to fix it. There is, however, a fix for it. And it's honestly something that I suggest that anyone who's adding or building complex WordPress sites seriously look at installing. We'll just go here very quickly. 2 plugins. The plugins are called IndexWP MySQL for speed and IndexWP Users for speed. They're very simple plugins, and what they do is add those columns. What they do is index those columns, and once installed, I can't even see it. Once the plugin's installed, we go to its settings, and what we're now going to tell it to do, should always do a backup, but hey, let's live a little bit dangerously. I'm just going to hit index. And, oh yes, I have made a backup. It's going to take a little while to run because it's got to do some work on the database. What it's doing is adding what's called a subtable index on that column. We can actually say, sure, that meta field can hold 1 million characters of information, but I only want you to worry about the first 32, because in reality, for most of those fields that are, user selectable data or things like that, the amount of information that they store is really over 32 characters. You can vary that. Some people use 192 characters, regardless of which you get instant performance benefits. Now again, we're not going to specifically see a huge jump in that benefit because again, a lot of these things benefit largely from concurrency. What we're stopping is every single page request doing a 100,000 page table walk for every page request. So these are things that you can do yourselves in your platforms. These are things that you can do to help improve your site's performance. How are we going for time, Vlad? Cool. I recommend everyone look at that. There is a second feature of that called WP Users for Speed. It does the same thing on a regular basis to the user table. It runs once a day and rebuilds the index of the user table. Again, if you've only got 50 users, it's not as important. You've got 100,000 users, that can improve page loads by 10 to 15%. And again, for concurrency, reduce the amount of page table walks. The next two tools I'm going to talk about very quickly. You saw how many plugins this particular site has. You saw how many plugins are loaded in real time. Now, the reality is that the way WordPress works is that every plugin is loaded for every page request, regardless of whether that plugin is used on that page. And the reason it has to do that is that there's a remote possibility that that plugin had a shortcode that could be added to that page. In WordPress, there's no registry. There's no shortcode repository that says, oh, on this page it needs LearnDash and Tutor LMS, and this page it doesn't. What that means is that there are pages on your site and plugins on your site that are particularly doing truckloads of work on that page request to help you. There's a very, very well-known plugin called BetterDocs. It's a wiki type plugin. Now, BetterDocs assumes that it runs your site, and it assumes that every page of your site needs BetterDocs. So what BetterDocs does is every time a page loads, the first thing it does is builds an entire metadata stack of all the information that BetterDocs needs so that it then can quickly load it onto this page because it assumes it's on that page. But if you're running a complex dynamic site where BetterDocs is actually only on one page tab, it's really helping you out by spending half a second loading all that data ineffectively. These particular plugins that I'm talking about now allow us to do something, again, a little bit magical. We'll go and activate. I don't know that let me just make sure that they're installed. These plugins allow us to go through pages and say, hey, I don't want that plugin to load on that page because I don't need it there. There are a couple. One of the most well-known is Perf Matters. It's a big complex plugin. It is a paid plugin, but it can allow you to completely disable, where is it buried? I won't install Perf Matters at this stage because it's a complicated plugin. You'll see that we have it here, it is turned off. But Perf Matters enables you to go through, where's the plugin manager? Perf Matters enables us to do that on a page-by-page basis. We're going to use a different one though. We're going to use another, and again, most of these are there. That didn't help me, did it? Plug in. No. I'm just looking for plugin manager. Yeah, WP plugin manager it's called. I just couldn't see it. There it is. Okay, we'll just activate it quickly. This is again a paid plugin, but it also has a free version, and we're going to be using that today very quickly. We'll notice that it's now, we refresh the page, we go to general settings, and I can very quickly go, in this case, as an example, I don't want LearnDash LMS, I'll turn it on, to load on the news feed, that page that we were on before. So all of a sudden, we're hitting save. We've encouraged that plugin not to compete. 1.16 seconds. We've picked up another by turning off LearnDash. Now, if I spend the time, I know that I can go through different pages on my site and actually reduce that down to about 0.9 of a second by turning off plugins that I don't need in certain spaces. One of the big impacts of this is people have a marketing or sales and landing page. That marketing and sales or landing page has no need for any of the plugins in that stack. None of them. But they're running every time, and that same problem is happening on my marketing page. A simple action saved us 0.2 of a second. When you're optimizing websites, these are the things that you want to start considering. There are a lot of advanced features in those plugins when you go to and start paying for them, but they are definitely ways that you can rapidly improve your site. A lot to cover in a big topic. The most complex conversation. In a small blogging site, we might have 50 or 60 images and bits of media. In a site like LearnDash, in a site like BuddyBoss, especially a site like BuddyBoss, where we're allowing users to upload and store cat videos, pictures of their dogs, pictures of their social media. In this place, what we're looking at here is our, the site that we're looking at is people sharing agricultural tips. They're uploading photos of their products, of their farm, of their height of their growth, you name it, that's happening in real time. All that data has to get, all those images have to get stored somewhere. Traditionally, they're stored on your WordPress site. Now, up to a limit, that's fine. But there is something like 2.9 terabytes of media currently uploaded to Kind Harvest. Try backing that up every day. The solution is to offload that media. We use tools like WP Offload Media. There is other tools out there like Cloud Media. And what they literally do, very, very quickly, is set up a system where we can tell our site to store all that media in the cloud. We can store it in an S2 bucket on Amazon. We can store it in a R2 bucket on Cloudflare. We can store it in DigitalOcean storage spaces. Each of those components, then remove that media off our site. Importantly, if we're storing it on a platform like S3, it is then infinitely redundant. S3 stores that information in 32 data centers around the world. If I talk to the AWS team, they'll tell me that statistically, it's impossible for that data to ever be lost. A nuclear weapon blowing out the data center in North Virginia just means that you have to get the data from Ohio or from the next block over. So as you scale, this starts to become a very, very valuable proposition. And it's completely seamless. If we add a photo, here's something I prepared earlier. And I go open, and I go post, and I inspect that because I'm a nerd. I find that that media was instantly uploaded to the S3 cloud, and it is being pulled from a CDN called cdnkindharvest.ag. It's a cloud store. It happened without anyone even knowing it happened. And that store media has never hit my WordPress site. I no longer need to worry about backing it up. I know that it's instantly being distributed via a CDN, and the customer has an experience that it just looks like it was. Offloading, again, another one of those valuable tools. We're right on the edge here, so we'll see if we can get to the bonus, which added. Again, offload media, WP offload media, and others are in that space. We're not going to talk very much about things like edge site includes, but there is a technique, if you're using web servers like Lightspeed Enterprise, that can actually page cache an entire WooCommerce page, but not page cache the checkout bar, or not page cache the cart bar, or not page cache the side bit where it's loading in the data. It's called edge site includes. It's only available on certain web servers, as I said, Lightspeed Enterprise, and it requires a little bit of setup. So we are going to talk about it today, but it is something that, again, if you're looking to ultimately optimize your platform, Lightspeed servers, Lightspeed caching, and Lightspeed Enterprise servers add that sort of feature. The last feature, it's a bonus. Not everyone supports it, but again, if you're looking to find a way to rapidly improve certain sorts of things in your platform, just see if it's enabled. It's a data server. It's two products. Elasticsearch, which is a server that is a tool that you can install either on your server or you can rent from a cloud provider. And what it does is it can index lots of things in your system. It can index every one of your blog posts. It can index all of your products. It can index all of that data. And then instead of using the very slow and kludgy WordPress search tool, it can actually do things like, now we've got thousands of blogs and we've got thousands of articles, and I can type the word berries, hit enter, and it's generated all of that information basically instantly. Again, in a dynamic site where there are potentially hundreds of people doing searches, that sort of search on a database in WordPress would be crashing the server with 100 concurrent users. That entire search was just offloaded to an entirely separate server. And that can actually do some amazingly intelligent things. It can do natural language searches. You can configure it to go, hey, find things like this. And it can do intelligent natural language searches. It's not enabled on this particular site, but it can do things like context searching, where it will actually start to do things like highlight the words that were searched. These are features that, in all of these things, what we're doing is saying, these are things you can do now. It doesn't need to be on your hosting. I will say this though, if I was running this site on a shared host, and I don't have one set up, I know that this activity feed takes 19 seconds to load. I know that on other managed WordPress providers, like WP Engine, it takes about 8 seconds to load. And that's not a slight or comment against those hosts. It's just the nature of WordPress and the nature of these plugins. You have to reach a point where you go, for certain sorts of sites, you need to find tools and products that match the need. Again, there are options as website owners that can improve your performance. Some of them may involve a conversation with your host. Sometimes it may involve talking to a new host, or having discussions about whether your host supports OP caching or whether your host supports Redis servers or Elasticsearch. A number of the managed hosts do, and it is worth having that conversation. Thank you everyone for your time. I know we're right on the edge. Do we have any quick questions? If not, we'll head towards our next break. Sorry?
When can we blow it up?
Blow up.
The website.
That one's not live, but they're hard to blow up when they're optimized well. That particular site, under load testing, has handled 1,900 concurrent users in real time. We have other sites that have handled 20 to 30,000 concurrent users in real time. using specific techniques.
Wouldn't it be better to advise them to clean up what they've done and therefore not need such power behind the background? Because there's certainly a waste of resources there.
That's one of the reasons why we use things like those plugin limiters. But the plugins that are there are all there in that particular site for a reason. They're all there because those sites are incredibly complex and have incredible levels of features in the same space. That site, when I first looked at it, you saw a number of inactive, had close to 110 plugins in it. What we have already done on that site, and if you went through it, you would notice that there are actually a number of custom plugins in there. And we literally worked with them as a customer going, you've got this plugin installed for this one feature that takes 5 lines of code in a snippet. And for those sort of plugins, we do exactly that. We work with them. But when you get a customer as a host, you often don't have the ability to have that conversation. If you're an agency or you're a developer, you can have that conversation. But trust me, I've got people that go, I need this one feature of this Elementor plugin. And I'm going, yes, but it's an Elementor plugin with 30,000 widget options in it. Yeah, but there's nothing else that provides that. And I'm not willing to spend $2,000 to pay a developer to write that code for me. So they want that $5 plugin. And so as a host, we sort of sometimes have to go, but it's the nature of those plugins. It's the nature of the fact, in terms of concurrency, that those plugins aren't just using PHP calls. They're using AJAX and REST calls. They're using background processing tasks that are executing every minute in background to keep things like user lists stable and up to date. It's not an easy path at this level of scale. Last question, if there are any, up the back.
Hi. I really like what I've heard today, and I thought I want to sort of research more. And I was wondering if you could give us any a website or a course to know more, or to know what you know about making a WordPress site.
It is a little bit of a challenging space. It is something we're actually working on at the moment as a course. It'll be out later this year. Again, follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Wes Rapid at WordPress.org. If you're not a member of make.wordpress.org, I would say to everyone in this room, you should be. Because it's the ecosystem that underpins a lot of our community. And there are people in that space happy to talk about this stuff. Some of them happy to talk about it for hours, like myself. And people that are willing to share their knowledge. So I would start by joining that community. There are hosting teams, there are performance teams that are actually actively making these conversations. Are there spaces where you can learn all that knowledge? At the moment, possibly not. And one of the reasons, unfortunately, that I say that is it's a bit of a growth industry. There are people out there that are saying, hey, that'll cost you $3,000. And we'll come and do a lot of that. What I've given you today is actually information that a lot of people are charging. We had one last question down the front. Yeah.
Probably more a comment, for that problem that you had just now with the plugin using the 1%. I find that most websites, that's the real problem. And the way we got around it is there's that plugin called WP Code Lite. It's a free plugin.
Yeah.
And inside the plugin you have all the code, a little snippet.
And you can strip stuff back.
Yeah. Or search Gemini for it.
Exactly. So there are options. Again, thank you everyone for your time. Anyone who wants to chat, I'm around all day today and tomorrow. Happy to have talks and conversations.